Thank you, everybody. I'm grateful and excited to be here and be part of the sustainability panel. My talk today is about community gardens and their venues in practicing sustainability and sustainable living, but also venues for peace building. Because I've actually been doing this work, promoting and working with community gardens and urban farms for the past few years, and I've seen examples after examples how they changed people's, the landscape of people's lives, both physical and psychological. And I've seen the transformation of people who dare to come out and to get engaged and to learn from nature. It has been a real joy to see the transformation of people who dare to put their hands in the soil and get dirty and basically see the transformation of sunlight and water and nutrients into what we call food, and take a bite into that food and really enjoy it. And people who dare to, am I still on the mic? Okay. People who dare to see the patterns of growth in plants and insects, and people who dare to listen to other people and to listen to birds and other human beings. And the work I do is really inspired by the stories. And so my talk is really a few stories put together. But before I go to my talk, I wanted to just bring it back to sustainability and the role that, the link between peace building and sustainability. And I think we all can agree that most of the problems that we are facing today in the world are because of lack of understanding of resources and using them in a very unsustainable way. So wanting more and more resources, and as a result, our resources have become commodified and or depleting by multinational corporations and our governments around the world. And so things like arable land and drinking water and diversity and raw material and seeds and on and on. And I think that if to really combat the problems that we're facing, we have to take the matters in our own hands. We have to do our individual part. And I think what I really like what one of my teachers says, that the problems of the world look very, very increasingly big and complex, but the solutions remain embarrassingly simple. And so I think it's really up to us how to do our part and to pave the path for peace building. So what are the things that we can do? Which, I mean, these are the things that we can do, but peace building really begins by taking responsibility, personal responsibility, to use our resources with a global mindset, to care for the people on the land we live on, to grow our own food when possible and if we can, to conserve water, to learn how to capture rainwater, to use gray water when possible, manage our waste by really applying, reusing, reducing, and then recycling. Recycling comes at the end. And also learn how to compost, home composting, and learning and applying sustainable building practices. This is what Lance just gave a presentation about. Participate in our community by sharing and learning from one another, and then educating, activating ourselves and our youth to learn how to nurture nature. And I think this last point is probably the most responsible part that we can do to pave the path for peace and harmony in the world. Which takes me to my first story. And this is a story about the Osani circle game. These are the Efe children of the Ituri rainforest in the Congos. They come together with one of the elders, and they put their feet next to each other, forming a circle. And they go around the circle and they say something like, something circular is the moon, and the other child will say, something circular is the sun, and the other child will say, something circular is our eyeball, and on they go until they go to a deeper layer, and they talk about the circles of family. and the circles that exist in the cycles of regeneration, and the cycles that exist in seasons, and the cycles that exist in the womb of their mothers. And on they go until they can't think of anything else. So they back out of the circle one by one until there's only one child that's left that knew more of the cycles of life and connections than other childs. And the tradition has it that this child will live a long and prosperous and blessed life. And it's so important that we know and we learn and we really comprehend that everything is circular. So the cycles of season and the cycles of human life and the cycles of birth. And the more we understand these cycles, the more we understand the cycles of peace building and the importance of that. And there's so many cycles in nature that we can learn from. And I think of the children and how we need to teach our children about these cycles, because that's where peacemaking starts. It starts with them having experiences where they feel and they know that they're connected and they're one, and everything is that unity and oneness. So this has been really the reason behind the work I do, creating the conditions for everyone, especially youth, to come together and learn about these cycles and the connections that life has. And I think in my experience, and it's evident for me, that gardens have the capacity for us to exercise and to learn and to get close to nature and learn from nature. So why gardens? Because gardens manifest so many cycles that pave the way and bring more peace and harmony in the world. Because gardens obviously provide food in abundance and economical sustainability. Gardens bring life, beauty, and peace and unity in the neighborhoods. Gardens bring good health and environmental awareness. They're venues for practicing the 3 R's: reducing, reusing, recycling, and composting. They teach responsibility and resourcefulness. They support natural habitats and ecosystems, and they enable interactions with other people and with nature. And they nurture kindness, love, and appreciation. And the good news is that there's so many renewed and awareness around gardens, and we see that all over the place happening globally and locally. And takes me to the second story. The last piece was supposed to come after, but I guess it's here now. But anyways, this is about Liberia. So Liberia, in 2006, Liberia chose its first ever woman president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. She's not only the first woman president of Liberia, but she's the first ever woman president of the entire continent. And she took office after 14 years of continued civil war. The way that civil war ended is in itself another story, but really quickly the war ended by women coming together, organizing, and forcing the men to surrender their weapons. So she took office after 14 years of continued war. And basically, in her campaign, she was re-elected and she remains to be a popular figure, but in her campaign in 2006, she said that there's so much that needs to be done on a governmental level, but there's only one thing that each individual can do to end the war forever, to bring peace back into the country, to bring the elephants back into the country, because the elephants had fled the country after the war broke, to end hunger and to end child abduction and to heal the child soldiers. And on she went, and she said that for each individual to create a garden. So creating gardens everywhere. And that was the solution for each individual. And I think it's part of this renewed awakening led by some of the most influential women. When we all know that the First Lady, the first thing she did after taking office was to create a garden and shed light upon the White House gardens and the importance of having that. This is actually a project that one of my mentors, Warren Brush, is involved in. It's showing how peace building can take root in youth in action. He works with orphan children and refugees all around Africa. These are orphan children in Kenya learning how to build a grey water system where It's a mulch basin with a lot of organic matter, so it filters the gray water because the gray water breeds malaria, and there's lack of fresh water. So they're learning how to recycle this gray water that breeds malaria and use it to also grow food. So they're planting sugarcane and banana trees and food, so they're creating a food forest. And they're also recycling their gray water. So it's a very simple solution, but it just shows how these simple solutions, these local efforts, can have a global impact in peace building and in healing. I want to bring it to a little bit more of a local example. This is in Asheville, North Carolina. A few families and neighborhoods have come together and created a garden at Burton Street Community Garden. And week after week, they work at the garden, they grow in their own food, they harvest and reap the benefits of it, so they enjoy the bounty, but they also share their harvest on a weekly basis with the elders in their community, once a week. And some of these elders don't have the means, or most of them are dealing with disability. So it's a very, very beautiful thing that's happening. Another example is Asheville, North Carolina. This is actually a very interesting story because this parcel of land was vacant for years and years, and it's next to a low-income apartment housing. And a couple are in the picture who live in the apartment housing, by the way, they took it upon themselves to go to the city, get the permit, and turn this vacant baseball field into a community garden that has brought so much beauty and abundance into their neighborhood. And so they do classes and workshops and tours, and they engage all the kids in the area. And it's really important to know that they had a vision that was grounded in leveraging their community. So turning something very negative into a very positive thing, because this land was filled with trash and debris all over the place, and now it's a beautiful place that produces food. They have chickens, and neighborhood kids and families are involved in. So in their vision, they wanted to take the matters in their own hand and come together and create this beautiful space. So from Asheville to Long Beach, which is even a more local example, the Growing Experience is a nonprofit organization who turned around the 7-acre land that was within the low-income community housing called Carmelitos Housing Development. They turned the land into an urban farm. It's a 7-acre mini farm. And the land and the housing is operated by the Housing Authority of the County of LA. So now it's been, I think, 2 years. So they've been growing vegetables and fruits and herbs, and in a very sustainable and organic way, but also the grounds of the farm is used for educational purposes. So they have workshops, they have classes, they have tours, they have different events, but also they have job trainings and skills development. So the neighborhood youth come out on a weekly basis, and they learn how to plant fruit trees, how to care for them, and they learn how to compost, how to recycle. They learn how to grow vegetables and how to really work together. And these are the neighborhood's youth that, this is a North Long Beach, so it's a very high density, low income area of Long Beach. This is a project that I've personally been involved with from the very beginning. This is in Santa Ana, California, Orange County. I've been involved with going to the city, getting the permit for the land, writing grants and planning and planting and doing educational programming. And this is the garden before, and you notice that so the street behind the garden is called Towns End. And Townsend Street is notorious for being high in crime.
Yeah, actually, it's right around.
Oh, you do? Perfect. Have you been to the garden? Oh, I haven't seen you.
It was there when I was a kid, and I was wondering.
Yeah, well, it's changed a lot the past 3 years that the garden has been there. So as you just heard, it's notorious for gang-related activities and high crime. So it's traditionally been a very troubled neighborhood. And so we basically, putting the garden there made a huge difference. And so this is the picture of the garden after less than a year. And it's been a real joy to see the community members come out and get involved and learn how to grow organic food and really reap the benefits, but also in the neighborhood youth who used to really vandalize the park now take ownership, and they come out and work in the garden, and they learn how to grow their own, grow vegetables and fruits, but also work with their friends and family in the garden together and getting their hands literally dirty. And these are the pictures, some of these pictures that sort of show how these cycles have been created. So food and abundance and interaction and collaboration and beauty. And there's a picture of the workshops that we do. So these are just the pictures that show that the full cycle of something, that entity that can create so many cycles that pave the way for peace and harmony in the neighborhood. So this is another picture, and this is my last slide. So again, gardens and creating gardens is a very subversive and nonviolent action, but it brings so much beauty, peace, and abundance into our neighborhood. And so I really hope that this presentation inspired you and some of you to go out there and get engaged and maybe even start a garden in your own backyard, in your own apartment, in your own neighborhood, in your college or school. Remember that gardens not only grow great, good, healthy, safe food, they grow healthy kids and families, and they grow healthy communities. There's tons of resources out there. Just go and somehow get engaged. Thank you.